The eldest grandson of Emperor Daming. Introduction. In the 25th year of Hongwu and the 10th year of Zhu Ying's reign in the Ming Dynasty, he established a great foundation in the western regions. In the Yan prince's mansion, Zhu Ying and the later Emperor Yongle, Zhu Di, had a pleasant conversation. On April 25, the crown prince of the Ming Dynasty, Zhu Biao, passed away. Zhu Ying accompanied Zhu Di south to the capital to offer condolences. Zhu Di. It's extremely despicable. Unexpectedly, it was my own king who personally sent him to the throne. Zhu Yuanzhang. Lao Si is a good child, he has brought his great-grandson to us. Zhu Ying. Under the radiance of the sun and moon, all my bright rivers and mountains are here. More reflections on the outbreak of listing. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. My family, I have put it on the shelves again. This time it was really unfortunate. The new book went against all odds, exposing various hacks, and various big shots simultaneously publishing books, directly being besieged. Silver and gold are flying all over the sky, and recommended traffic has been snatched away. The baby feels bitter in their heart, but they don't say anything. Tonight at midnight, first of all, I wish everyone a happy New Year's Day. I hope you can share some happiness with me and make me happy too. In the early morning, there will be a burst of 10 shifts. On New Year's Day, there will be another 10 shifts in different time periods, totaling 20 shifts. Add update rules. Check into the book review section. 100 floors plus 1 watch, valid for the long term. Monthly pass plus change. After listing, 1 change will be added every 500 monthly passes. Rewards and updates. Limited to today's event period only crowdfunding reward, 1,500 coins for monthly pass, 10 crowdfunding times plus 1 change. Alliance leader rebate 15% JD card plus 5 update. Silver rebate 30% JD card plus 88 more. All outstanding debts will be settled in January. The audience for historical classification is not high, so I only have you. I hope to provide genuine subscription support so that this book can steadily continue on its journey. Seeking support. Duck. Chapter 1. 800 miles urgent. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. On April 28, the 25th year of the Hongwu reign. Beiping, Prince Yan's mansion, sunny. Zhu Ying looked at Zhu Di in front of her and couldn't help but feel a little sad for a moment. It has been 10 years since he arrived at the beginning of the Ming Dynasty. Who would have thought that he could sit in front of Emperor Yongle and talk confidently? I have been cooperating with you for so long, and of course I trust you. You can discuss the details with Sanbao. Zhu Di looked at Zhu Ying and said with a smile on his face, looking relatively gentle. Thank you to His Highness the King of Yan, then I'll leave first, Zhu Ying said with a smile. Even when facing Zhu Di, he remained neither humble nor arrogant. Behind Zhu Yingqi, he gestured to Zhu Di and the Daoyan master Yao Guangxiao next to him before leaving. The 3 treasures mentioned by Zhu Di were later Zheng He, who has not yet been given the surname Zheng and his real name is Ma He. Sanbao followed suit, bowed slightly to Zhu Di, and then left with Zhu Ying to discuss the details of the transaction. After seeing the 2 figures disappear, Zhu Di sighed to Yao Guangxiao and said, I have seen them many times, and every time I see them, I feel extremely unbelievable. There are 2 people so similar in this world. If it weren't for the fact that I knew my elder brother had never had any extramarital affairs outside, I would have thought it was my elder brother's illegitimate child. Upon hearing this, Yao Guangxiao also sighed and said, the first time I saw this, I was amazed by the heavens and humans. After careful investigation, it was finally confirmed that this son had no connection with His Highness the Crown Prince. Upon hearing these words, Zhu Di fell silent for a moment before saying in a deep voice, this matter must be confirmed again and again. This son is of a similar age to my deceased nephew, so the master needs to be careful and clear. Zhu Di naturally sent people to carefully investigate and found that the news was no different from that of Guangxiao. But there was always a sense of unease in his heart, mainly because Zhu Ying not only had a 7-point similarity in appearance, but more importantly, her refined temperament was extremely similar to her elder brother Zhu Biao. But Zhu Ying is just a small merchant, and this scholar's temperament is not something that a businessman can have. Whoever saw Zhu Biao and Zhu Ying said that they had nothing to do with each other and could not believe them themselves. Your Highness, rest assured that although this matter is quite distant, after months of investigation by the poor monk, it is enough to ensure that this son's background is clear. This son was born in the 5th year of Hongwu, 2 years older than his Highness' nephew. Although his parents have passed away for many years, his hometown in the village is well known to him. Those rural villagers don't have the ability to fabricate such a lie yet. After Guangxiao finished speaking, he continued to sigh, but this son was born out of time, so intelligent and clever, yet he was born into a merchant's family. If it weren't for this, it would probably not be difficult to become a successful candidate. If you were fortunate enough to enter the palace examination and be seen by His Majesty, it would be with this face that you would undoubtedly be the top scorer. Even His Highness the Crown Prince would love this son even more. After listening, Zhu Di did not respond directly, but fell into contemplation. After a long time, he finally spoke up and said, "We will do everything we can to prevent this son from leaving Beiping. Moreover, this son cannot be allowed to go to the capital. If someone comes from the capital, they cannot be seen." Zhu Di's voice was extremely plain, but Guangxiao could feel the hidden information inside. Facing the attitude of King Yan, Guangxiao was very pleased. 3 months ago, during his visit to the city, he first met Zhu Ying and tried to make friends with her, and then contacted Prince Yan Zhu Di. Under the pretext of trade, they engaged in extensive cooperation with Zhu Ying and delayed it in the territory of Beiping. This child will be of great use in the future. Guangxiao said calmly. Zhu Di nodded lightly in recognition. "Don't worry, Master Zhu. Your snowflake salt is so crystal clear and has no astringency. Now that you have the support of your Highness, it will definitely flow smoothly in Beiping." Ma Sanbao politely said to Zhu Ying. For Zhu Ying, Ma Sanbao also has a good impression. He is just a eunuch and inevitably receives some strange looks. In Zhu Ying's eyes, he felt a kind of respect for equal treatment. That's not because of his identity, superficial flattery, but actually treating him as a true man. "I'm just a matchmaker, I've been dealing with those foreign businessmen for a long time, and I've earned their trust," Zhu Ying said with a smile. Salt and iron are all official monopolies, and no matter how strong Zhu Ying is, it is impossible to sell snowflake salt on her own. The only way is to sell it to the Ming government in the name of a merchant through the import model, in order to gain profits. However, this quantity is indeed a bit insufficient. Please let Zhu Gongzi know the local merchants and see if they can provide more in terms of market share. I have so many people in Beiping, and your Highness doesn't know how to distribute this snowflake salt. If Mr. Zhu can accomplish this, it's easy to discuss the price." Ma Sanbao said that once this snowflake salt was born, it was crazily snatched by various nobles in Beiping, and the amount Zhu Ying brought each time was just over 100 pounds. This 100 pounds of snowflake salt would be more than enough for the Yen prince's mansion, but it would be a bit tight for the entire high-ranking officials and nobles in Beiping. The distribution of snowflake salt can only be arranged by the Yen prince's mansion, and Ma Sanbao is the main person in charge. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. Every time facing those noisy nobles and servants, Ma Sanbao feels a headache. Some of these details are related to the reputation of His Royal Highness the King of Yen. After not affecting the supply of the Yen prince's mansion, there is a great deal of attention to which one has more and which one has less. I'll try my best, but the snowflake salt is expensive and the production is scarce. Coupled with the rampant border bandits, it's already not easy to deliver over 100 kilograms to Beiping. Zhu Ying sighed with regret, her eyes flickering with memories, as if recalling the difficult past of transporting salt. However, in reality, this snowflake salt was originally made by Zhu Ying according to the legal system of later generations, and there were as many as needed. The only difference is the technique used in the processing. After secondary processing of well salt, this snowflake salt can be obtained. However, the Ming Dynasty controlled private salt. After studying it, Zhu Ying recruited a group of local merchants as his subordinates, and the salt production areas were also located outside the Ming Dynasty. In this way, it can only be considered as an import, even if the officials and merchants of the Ming Dynasty are envious, they have no way to deal with it. However, the bloody atmosphere in this salt trade is not enough for outsiders. Okay, then please trouble Lord Zhu a lot. Ma Sanbao said helplessly. Of course, the king of Yen sent someone to investigate the source of this snowflake salt, but the whereabouts of that group of merchants were very secretive, and there seemed to be a strong hidden force protecting this matter. Many of the scouts sent have disappeared into the vast grasslands. Without knowing the source, there is no way for the army to deploy. It was at this moment that the sound of horse hooves galloping could be heard at the end of the street. I saw a person in the distance riding a horse and running wildly in the center of the main road, while drinking loudly. 800 miles urgent, whoever blocks me will die. Chapter 2. Yao Guangxiao's Crazy Joy. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Master Zhu, I'll leave first. Ma Sanbao looked in this direction and was heading towards the Yen prince's mansion, indicating that something big had happened. After speaking, without waiting for Zhu Ying to respond, he strode away directly. What could it be? It wouldn't be. In Zhu Ying's heart, there was a vague speculation that in the 25th year of the Hongwu reign, this was the only major event that could have happened in the original history. It's a bit regrettable, Zhu Ying sighed. Not long after Zhu Ying walked back, a burly old man walked over with a weathered face. At first glance, it may seem outdated, around 50 years old, but in fact, Zhu Ying knows that it's only in her 40s. My boss, all the snowflake salt has been delivered, the old man said in a low voice, with only a slight difference in tone compared to Chinese. Uncle Zhong, don't worry about your work. I'll go and inquire later to see if I can know what happened to the 800-mile express. Zhu Ying nodded and casually said. Guessing is better than confirming. Yes, my boss. After Zhang Bo finished speaking, he followed closely behind Zhu Ying. His height of just over 1.8 meters, combined with his burly figure, makes others hesitant to see him. Zhang Bo may not seem much different from the Ming Dynasty, but in reality, she is a Jurchen. It's just that it has little to do with the Qing dynasty in later generations, and can be considered as a remnant of the Jin dynasty. When the Mongols ruled the Central Plains, the lives of the Jurchen people were not easy until Zhu Yuanzhang established the Ming dynasty without any racial discrimination, which allowed them to barely survive. The current Jurchen tribe mainly consists of three major groups: Jianzhou Jurchen, Haishi Jurchen, and Donghai Jurchen. Zhang Bo is the Donghai Jurchen, commonly known as the Wild Man Jurchen. At the beginning of Zhu Ying's journey, a check.in system was included. The first time I checked in, it was a pack of toilet paper, which is also good. After signing in for 10 years, some physical fitness, strength, and agility bonuses are still quite significant. There are even snacks like melon seeds and peanuts to satisfy my craving. It's really thoughtful. He only got nothing from the firearms blueprint and gunpowder formula he wanted the most. However, he is able to intimidate these killing talents under his command because of his powerful personal force. Walking along the border and grasslands of the western regions, one encounters no good deeds and can establish a vast foundation. Mastering weapons like snowflake salt is not something that can be easily dealt with. The group of Jurchen tribes accompanying Zhang Bo was the key to Zhu Ying's ability to travel around the world. Of course, Zhu Ying's subordinates were not only part of the Donghai Jurchen, but also Mongolian, Simu, Daming, Goryeo, and so on. Some small forces that cannot survive or have been conquered by Zhu Ying have formed the current hodgepodge. Here in Zhu Ying, there is no distinction of race, everyone is equal, only one identity, a member of the Kuning Chamber of Commerce. My guide has not been completed yet, has it? Zhu Ying frowned and asked after taking a few steps. He has been here for a month now, and most of the goods accompanying the Chamber of Commerce fleet have been sold out. Under the introduction of Guangxiao, the snowflake salt was also launched with the Yen King Zhu Di, and its future sales will not be difficult. Originally, Zhu Ying should have left long ago, but this Beiping Prefecture government office was stuck with his road guide and delayed in handling it. I have asked several times, always evading with various reasons, that is his, and there are no problems with the other subordinates. Boss, the officials in that government office haven't even shown their faces lately. Damn it. They've taken so many benefits from us, and we can't even do this now. After Zhang Bo finished speaking, he hesitated slightly and said, Master, I feel that there must be someone behind the scenes manipulating this matter. Upon hearing this, Zhu Ying said expressionlessly, All right, I understand. You still need to go to that mansion every day to follow up on this matter. I'll see how long he can delay. Yes, my boss. Zhu Ying turned his head and glanced at the direction of the Yen Prince's mansion. Of course, he could guess who could suppress the Beiping Prefecture, except for the Yen Prince. What is the point of the Yen King forcibly keeping him in the city of Beiping? It's because of the hot snowflake salt in one's hand that one should let oneself go and then send someone to track it. This made Zhu Ying feel a bit strange. No matter what your purpose is, if you want to move me, it's not that simple. Zhu Ying was not afraid of the Yen King Zhu Di. With his personal strength, he took advantage of the night and rushed out of this city gate easily, and then his subordinates took over. Just leave this city of Beiping, and the sea will be wide with fish leaping, and the sky will be high with birds flying. On the grassland, Zhu Di wanted to catch him, but it wasn't that simple. Recently, Zhu Di has invited him to the mansion for a banquet every 3 to 5 days with a warm attitude. Emotionally speaking, apart from not letting him leave, there was no other action, which greatly puzzled Zhu Ying. Not forcibly leaving was also a charge that Zhu Ying did not want to carry on his back and charge him with being wanted. Although the status of the merchants in the Ming Dynasty was low, in this border area of the Ming Dynasty, the emperor was far away, and there was not so much attention paid. He still lived a very prosperous life. Meanwhile, within the Yen Prince's mansion. What? My elder brother passed away. How dare you bully me? Yen King Zhu Di grabbed the chest of the previous messenger, like a raging lion, and shouted loudly as he read a book. Little people dare not deceive His Royal Highness the Prince of Yen. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince passed away 3 days ago, and His Majesty sent an urgent message of 800 miles to summon His Highness to return to the capital to offer condolences. The captured post guard was already panting heavily, but was frightened by the Yen King Zhu Di, and his whole body trembled. After the confirmation of King Yen Zhu Di, he released his post guard and felt a surge of sadness. Tears welled up in his eyes, his expression sorrowful, and he couldn't help but burst into tears. Big brother. My big brother, why did you just leave your brothers behind and go like this? The mournful tone of voice and color, as heard by others, evokes an extremely melancholic emotion. This is not that Zhu Di is acting, but rather that the death of Zhu Biao has had a significant impact on Zhu Di. Zhu Di's childhood was full of shadows, and due to premature birth, his body was particularly weak. Zhu Di, who had just been born, was not favored by Zhu Yuanzhang. Because Zhu Yuanzhang was busy fighting, until the age of 7, Zhu Di didn't even have his own name, and Zhu Yuanzhang almost never saw him. Even if he did, he would consider him non-existent. His only childhood support may have been his big brother Zhu Biao. Zhu Biao is kind and generous, with a pure and kind personality. He loves his younger brothers very much, which is also the only beautiful memory of Zhu Di's childhood. Even when Zhu Yuanzhang reprimands the kings as he grows up, Zhu Biao will also assist. Perhaps at the beginning, Zhu Di had some complaints about his elder brother Zhu Biao's exclusive father's favor, but later on, he sincerely admired him. Among the many brothers in the entire palace, only the eldest brother Zhu Biao held the most important position in Zhu Di's heart. Even his younger brother Zhu Gui, who grew up together, could not compare. Yao Guangxiao on the side just lowered his head when he heard the news. Seemingly sad, there is actually a hint of obvious ecstasy flashing in the eyes. Chapter 3. Zhu Di's Dark Son. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhu Di wants to become emperor, in his dream. He is also human, and naturally longed for that position. But he knew very well that his elder brother was there, and this delusion could only be buried deep in his heart. Just occasionally having a dream like this. Even if he hides deeply, he can still be seen by those with intentions. This person is now the abbot of Qingshou Temple, Yao Guangxiao. In the 15th year of the Hongwu reign, Empress Ma passed away. Zhu Yuanzhang selected high-ranking monks from the common people to accompany the kings, chanting scriptures and praying for blessings. At that time, Yao Guangxiao was recommended by Zhuoshan Shizong Lu of the Monk Records Department and successfully accompanied Zhu Di. Why did you specifically seek out this king? Zhu Di asked curiously at the time. I have great gifts to send to you, poor monk, Yao Guangxiao replied calmly. What do you, a monk, have to give to this king? Zhu Di smiled and didn't pay too much attention. He didn't lack gold, silver, and treasures. As the king of Yan, he could be considered one person below and 10,000 people above. If your highness chooses me, I am willing to give you a white hat tomorrow, Yao Guangxiao said quietly. Upon hearing these words, Zhu Di was shocked and his face changed greatly, and he wanted to get angry. However, in front of Yao Guangxiao's deep eyes, all the words seemed to be stuck in his throat. Finally, he just whispered, "Come with me." Although Zhu Di had little education, he was still very clear about the meaning of Wang Shangjia Bai. Even if he knew that Yao Guangxiao could say such things, he was definitely not a serious monk. Zhu Di still brought him back to Beiping and appointed him as the abbot of Qingshou Temple. What exactly he thinks, perhaps only Zhu Di himself can know. Notify the crown prince to come with me to the capital to offer condolences. After the post guard left, Zhu Di took a long time to recover and then gave the order. The great event of the crown prince's death cannot be delayed. It is already late today, and tomorrow morning, Zhu Di will set off. Yes, your highness. Upon hearing this, Ma Sanbao immediately went to search for the crown prince Zhu Gaoqi. After the others left, Yao Guangxiao saw Zhu Di's expression recover and walked up to Zhu Di, whispering. Your highness, this is a divine opportunity. Upon hearing this, Zhu Di frowned and looked at Yao Guangxiao, saying, What do you mean by that? Yao Guangxiao was not afraid to say anything rebellious or immoral, so he directly pointed it out. If the crown prince dies, your majesty will naturally choose another heir from among many princes and grandchildren to inherit the throne. In the opinion of the poor monk, with your majesty's temperament, the possibility of selecting from the imperial grandchildren is the greatest. With Zhu Ying's appearance and temperament, if he appears in the capital city or is seen by his majesty, he will definitely be regarded as a premature eldest grandson. In this way, your highness has an opportunity. Yao Guangxiao's words have a very clear meaning, which is to take this opportunity to bring Zhu Ying to the capital and even arrange a chance encounter with Zhu Yuanzhang. Once Zhu Ying is recognized as the former grandson of the emperor, Zhu Xiong, there is a high possibility of being designated as the heir. Zhu Di and Yao Guangxiao naturally knew the identity of Zhu Ying. Zhu Yuanzhang was also over 60 years old, and in the era of the Ming Dynasty, it was considered a long life. Of course, if Zhu Ying could be promoted to the throne at that time, it would definitely be a bloody battle. But do Yao Guangxiao care about these? What he cares about is whether the situation can become more chaotic. Only in a chaotic situation can he possibly unleash his ambitions. Why do you think that father would not choose me? Zhu Di said somewhat arrogantly, while a fierce aura emanated from deep in his eyes. Obviously, the emperor's position made him a bit irritable. After all, it was a possibility he had been thinking about day and night. Now that he finally saw the hope of his dream coming true, Guangxiao came to break it, and Zhu Di couldn't help but feel a sense of tyranny. He was the king of Yen and grew up in a war-ridden military camp, demonstrating excellent military talent from a young age. In the third year of Hongwu, at the age of 10, Zhu Di was granted the title of King of Yen. In the 9th year of the Hongwu reign, Zhu Di married Su Shi, the daughter of the famous general Su De, who was the #1 hero of the Ming Dynasty and ranked first among the 6 kings of the founding of the country. In the 13th year of the Hongwu reign, Zhu Di, who was only 21 years old, took over the fiefdom of Yanjing in Beiping. In the 23rd year of the Hongwu reign, Zhu Yuanzhang ordered Jin Wang Zhugong and Yan Wang Zhu Di to divide their troops into 2 groups and launch another attack on the northern Yuan dynasty, citing the repeated border troubles caused by the former prime minister of the Yuan dynasty, the Grand Commandant Nair Buhua, and the Imperial Academy Alodmur. In this expedition, Fu Yud, Duke of Ying, was appointed as the former general to conquer the enemy, Zhao Yong, Marquis of Nanxiong, Chao Xing, Marquis of Huayuan, and Wang Bai, Marquis of Dingyuan, and Sun Ku, Marquis of Quaning, were appointed as the left and right deputy generals to oversee the troops. Imperial Edict Wang Bai led Shangxi soldiers to obey the control of King Jin, while the rest were under the control of King Yan Zhu Di. At the age of 30, Zhu Di became the commander-in-chief of the army. Zhu Di was granted a fiefdom in Beiping, which was the capital of the previous dynasty. As the 4th son of Zhu Yuanzhang, Zhu Di's trust is self-evident. 10 years ago in Beiping, famous generals Fu Yud, Feng Sheng, and Lan Yudu used Beiping as their starting point to conquer the northern Yuan dynasty. For Zhu Di, these famous generals were his admirers in his heart. Every battle, Zhu Di humbly learned from them, and when faced with the advice of the king of Yen, many famous generals were also generously bestowed upon him. The most difficult part of this expedition is not to defeat the enemy, but to find them. The Ming army is strong and has a tendency to crush, but the climate in the hinterland of Mongolia is harsh and extremely vast. If one enters rashly, over time, there will be great danger. Zhu Di gritted his teeth and ventured in, knowing that this was extremely important to him. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net could only give it a try. Like the once blue jade fishing sea, Zhu Di finally found the remnants of the northern Yuan army after a series of hardships. Later, Prince Yan Zhu Di surrendered Nair Buhua without spending a single soldier. But the king of Jin, Zhu Gong, fought fiercely, but was afraid of excessive losses and dared not venture deep into the hinterland of Mongolia. In this way, it further highlights Zhu Di's outstanding military achievements. In the current situation, in Zhu Di's view, as long as his father chooses fairly, his competitiveness is the strongest. Zhu Yunxi and Zhu Yunwen are just 2 little brats who are still wet and wet. Zhu Di looked at all his brothers, his second brother Zhu Xiu indulged in debauchery, and his third brother, Prince of Jin Zhu Fang, was not to mention. He was only compared to him in the past 2 years and had already become a supporting figure. The 5th younger brother, King Ding of Zhou, Zhu Ju, is Zhu Di's younger brother. Apart from his abilities, he cannot be counted according to his position. Guangxiao looked at Zhu Di's extremely confident face, and there was no need to pour a bucket of cold water on it, self-deprecating. He said, "Your Highness currently has a great advantage, but no one can guess your Majesty's thoughts. From the perspective of a poor monk, if Zhu Ying were not placed in the capital, it would still be considered a hidden gem. Everything is going smoothly and naturally excellent. If there are any mistakes, you won't be too hasty." Upon hearing these words, Zhu Di's fierce aura dissipated in his eyes, and a pensive expression flashed. He thinks Guangxiao's words still make a lot of sense. Just like a cunning rabbit in 3 caves, he couldn't be sure what his father thought. The emperor's position is too large, leaving a hidden hand is extremely necessary. Thinking of this, Zhu Di summoned the guards. According to my king's order, the merchant Zhu Ying prepared his luggage and set off with me tomorrow morning to go south to the capital to offer condolences. Chapter 4. I Power. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The guards were ordered to leave, but Yao Guangxiao showed a thoughtful expression. Why, do you think he would refuse? Prince Yan Zhu Di couldn't help but ask. After a moment of contemplation, Yao Guangxiao said, "This son may seem gentle and elegant, but in fact, he is able to suppress so many savage urchins obediently, indicating that he is not a weak scholar. Only wolves and eagles make a living on the grassland, and sheep are just their prey. In the eyes of the poor monk, Zhu Ying is a wolf in sheep's clothing." Yao Guangxiao did not directly answer the words of King Yan Zhu Di, but instead said something that seemed somewhat unrelated to Zhu Di's question. Zhu Di did not get angry because of this, he understood the meaning in Yao Guangxiao's words. With Zhu Ying's ferocity, if she really refuses to go to the capital together and insists on running away, it will not be worth the loss. After thinking for a moment, Zhu Di said, "This Beiping is being suppressed by our king's army. If we don't know, it's fine. Now that we know, he has no chance to escape." For the dozens of people under Zhu Ying's command, Zhu Di naturally knew that most of them were savage urchins, fierce and brave, with no fear of death. If they run away in the middle of the night, the soldiers at the city gate may not be able to stop them. But now with precautions in place, everything will naturally be different. But Your Highness, this is just a last resort. If we want Zhu Ying to be used by us, coercion is meaningless. With his intelligence, if malice arises. For the future layout, it's actually not good, Yao Guangxiao analyzed. In terms of looking at people, he can be said to be at the master level, and he relied on this ability to make a living. People like Zhu Ying, whom he has seen in his lifetime, are no more than 5. Regardless of their social status, they are all dragons and phoenixes among the people, and the sand cannot conceal their shining brilliance. So what do you say to make him voluntarily follow us to the capital? Earlier, when I delayed his route, I believe he had already noticed. Now taking him to the capital again, I'm afraid he has many ideas. This kid has a cautious personality, he doesn't seem like a 20-year-old kid, he doesn't have any greed at all, he just takes it easy. Even if there's a tiny mistake, it's all about wanting to quickly move away. Before, I only sent someone to test, but he didn't even want the snowflake salt he brought. Speaking of this, Prince Yan Zhu Di felt somewhat helpless. When Zhu Ying first appeared, he was particularly eye-catching with dozens of subordinates, so he secretly sent someone to test him. The next day, Zhu Ying went to the Beiping prefectural office to lead the way, hoping to escape when he didn't react. If it weren't for the fact that he happened to bump into something at the Beiping mansion, I'm afraid this kid would have dropped over 100 pounds of snowflake salt and disappeared without coming back. For Zhu Ying, Zhu Di felt like a hedgehog that was difficult to get started with. Even a slight movement made Zhu Ying extremely sensitive. I don't think we should let the prince go, Yao Guangxiao hesitated for a moment before saying. Why did he go? Upon hearing this, Zhu Di countered with a question. The great prince mentioned by Yao Guangxiao is naturally Zhu Gaoji, but currently Zhu Gaoji is only 15 years old. Although he is the eldest son, he is not favored by Zhu Di at present. Firstly, there is obesity. Zhu Gaoji, who is only 14 years old, is now a very chubby person. The whole person is quite overweight. It's not because of laziness or a large appetite, these things have no meaning in front of Zhu Di. As a king of Yen who grew up in the military camp, it is naturally impossible for his son to do so. However, Zhu Di was also very helpless. His eldest son is so fat that he even drinks water. There was a time when Zhu Di asked him to control his diet, but after a while, he realized that it was of no use and he was slowly gaining weight. Moreover, due to eating too little, it also leads to abnormal weakness in the body. Even the capital hospital has no choice but to take medication for a long time to suppress it. The Sodot called father of a tiger and son of a dog, he is a tiger himself, but the son he gives birth to is a sick cat. How does Zhu Di like this? By comparison, the second son, who is 2 years younger, has already demonstrated his bravery and is highly favored by Zhu Di. The great prince prefers tranquility rather than movement, loves reading, and has a gentle personality. Earlier, a poor monk saw that Zhu Ying and the great prince had a close relationship, and it is likely that if the great prince went, it would be easier to persuade Zhu Ying. Yao Guangxiao said that Zhu Gaoji, who is now 15 years old and does not have a crown, cannot be called a crown prince until Zhu Yuanzhang grants him a title. When Zhu Di heard the phrase, Shi Jing doesn't like to move, he felt a bit unhappy. The meaning was very obvious. How could he still move? However, the only one who can go now is the boss. Zhu Di understands the personality of the second son, and he is a bit reckless, which can easily lead to bad things. Then let the boss give it a try. I will arrange for someone else to strictly control the secret and not let them escape. The tone of the king of Yen was somewhat helpless, but when he spoke about Zhu Ying later on, he became somewhat stern. The existence of Zhu Ying, however, is related to the struggle for the throne and cannot be underestimated. Arrange manpower, tidy up everything, we'll leave the city overnight today, Zhu Ying instructed several subordinates in a certain courtyard room. Master, in this way, not only will we not make a profit, but we may even lose, said a Goryeo subordinate to Zhu Ying. I heard from the boss. Since the boss has arranged it, it means there must be something going on, another Mongolian subordinate immediately agreed. This is not a discussion with you, it's an order. Go back immediately and notify everyone. On the third watch, Yu will read a book at www.yuukeangshu.net and gather a crowd to force a departure. Zhu Ying said in a deep voice, her eyes slightly narrowed as she looked at the crowd, her voice carrying a hint of forest. The Goryeo person who spoke earlier had their lips tightly closed and dared not speak again. At this time, the owner is the most frightening. But at this moment, the outside door rang. Zhu Ying frowned slightly and said, "Come in." After a guard entered, he immediately whispered, "Master, there is a person outside the door who claims to be the attendant of the Yen prince's mansion, saying that there is a message from the Yen prince to the master." After hearing this, Zhu Ying sighed lightly and said, "It's true that we can't hide Yao Guangxiao." In less than 2 hours, Zhu Di's guards arrived. Zhu Ying dared to bet that this person thought it was Yao Guangxiao's secret instigation. Zhu Di didn't have such a quick reaction time. Zhu Ying walked into the courtyard, where a person dressed in the attire of the Yen prince's mansion and a guard was already waiting in the courtyard. Seeing Zhu Ying approaching, he quickly walked up and said, "Young Master Zhu, your Highness has sent a message asking you to pack your bags earlier and go south to the capital to offer condolences." Upon hearing these words, Zhu Ying said with a smile on her face, "Thank you, your Highness the King of Yen, for giving me such an opportunity. Please bring the letter back. I will be ready to arrive tomorrow morning." The guard nodded and went back to report. "Master, you are really divine." Just as you finished speaking, the King of Yen sent someone to deliver the message. Even so, there's no need to worry about anything. Just gather the little ones and break through the city. They must have been unprepared. We are waiting for work and it's extremely easy for us to leave the city. The Mongolian man who spoke earlier spoke up. "Don't think too much, we can't leave. The King of Yen has sent people to deliver messages, but now we have been secretly supervised," Zhu Ying said confidently. Chapter 5. Journey to the Capital. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhu Ying knew that such means must have been arranged by Yao Guangxiao. Just Zhu Ying couldn't figure out why Zhu Di and Yao Guangxiao were targeting him so badly. Based on the current situation, besides snowflake salt, what can I have in my hand? Why keep staring at oneself and not letting go? Without feeling any obvious malice, Zhu Ying couldn't see through and couldn't even analyze the purpose behind it. Master, did the king of Yen take a liking to you? Said the Mongolian man earlier, Wang Sheng. Zhu Ying was taken aback and then glared fiercely at the Mongolian man. If you don't know how to speak, speak less. No one treats you as mute. He certainly understood the meaning in Mongolian Han language, and this possibility was also one aspect that Zhu Ying had considered. As the Emperor Yongle, who has been passed down in later generations, he definitely attaches great importance to the aspect of talent. Zhu Ying never underestimates herself. From another perspective, or in other words, from the perspective of others, Zhu Ying is truly talented. However, at the age of 10, in just 10 years, a massive business association was established. Even if Zhu Ying's background was only discovered by Zhu Di at the tip of the iceberg, it would be extremely shocking. From Zhu Di's perspective, these talents naturally wanted to be used for their own purposes, especially since Zhu Ying mainly wandered in the western regions and grasslands. Familiarity with various tribes and other small countries was even more important for Zhu Di. Once Zhu Ying is subdued, Zhu Di will have unimaginable gains in the battles against various tribes on the grassland. If she had met Zhu Di a few years earlier, even 3 years earlier, Zhu Ying might have considered following him. But now, it's completely impossible. With this in mind, Zhu Ying began to plan how to leave Beiping City. From the current situation, although the difficulty is relatively high, if you really want to leave, there is still a way. However, in order to avoid excessive losses, Zhu Ying must carefully plan and take action tonight, as time does not wait. Just as Zhu Ying was pondering deeply, a subordinate came in to report that the Prince of Yen, Zhu Gaoqi, had arrived. What is he doing here? Zhu Ying had some doubts and went out directly to greet her. In the yard, a chubby young man is waiting. Although Zhu Gaoqi is currently overweight, it still looks like a normal person, not as exaggerated as in the future. After all, he is only 15 years old. Zhu Ying felt a bit regretful when she saw Zhu Gaoqi. This is clearly a disease that will be difficult to solve in later generations, let alone in the present day of the Ming Dynasty. Inga Air. Zhu Gaoqi was very happy to see Zhu Ying. Although he had not been in contact with Zhu Ying for a long time, he regarded her as a close friend. Why did the Grand Prince come? He missed me, Zhu Ying joked with a smile. He still had a good impression of Zhu Gaoqi, a chubby little man. Zhu Gaoqi is fond of reading Confucian books, but unlike ordinary people who study hard, he also has a great interest in other disciplines. As a descendant, Zhu Ying may not have the depth of expertise, but there is no problem with his ability to speak fluently. Zhu Gaoqi soon discovered that Zhu Ying seemed to have some knowledge in astronomy, geography, and various fields of study. Although it was a bit mixed, this extremely broad range of knowledge made him yearn for it. Under Zhu Ying's deliberate contact, the two quickly became good friends who couldn't help but speak. Of course I miss you, but when I came over today, it was mainly my father's intention. Tomorrow, you will go to Nanjing with us. Father asked me to come over and take a look. Is there anything you need to help with? Zhu Gaoqi casually said, without hesitation, and found a chair to sit on in the hall. Standing for a long time makes him easily tired. Zhu Ying waved his hand and asked the servants to prepare tea. He sat next to Zhu Gaoqi and asked, as if he had accidentally asked. Oh, the arrangements of the King of Yen. Do you have any instructions from the King of Yen? I didn't say anything, maybe I'm afraid you might be a bit unhappy, so let me comfort you. Zhu Gaoqi said directly, without any taboos in his words. Zhu Ying was speechless. He had already decided to leave in his heart. As a businessman, he knew the current status of the Ming Dynasty as a businessman. If he arrived at Nanjing, the capital of the Ming Dynasty, anyone who came here could despise him. He is living a carefree life now, it's not worth going to the capital for anything. I heard that the capital is very lively, so I have the opportunity to go and see it this time, Zhu Ying said perfunctorily. Upon hearing these words, Zhu Gaoqi's spirit immediately perked up and he said, "Everywhere is bustling with excitement, and the key is that the root of my Ming Dynasty firearms is in the military situation in the capital. I will talk to my father when the time comes. Let's see if we have the opportunity to go inside and take a look. I think there will be a lot more styles of firearms in the capital." Upon hearing these words, Zhu Ying's eyes lit up instantly. He has been coveting Daming firearms for a long time, and now in the world, Daming's current firearms are the number one. According to later records, Zhu Di attached great importance to firearms. But after Zhu Ying came into contact, he found that although Zhu Di also valued it, he did not reach the level of in-depth research, or in other words, the degree of attention was significantly different from what he had imagined. To a large extent, Zhu Di places more emphasis on personal military force or military strategy. In Zhu Di's eyes, firearms were just relatively useful weapons. However, firearms nowadays have not yet reached a strong concept. The main direction of rapid development in the Ming Dynasty firearms is still dominated by cannons. After all, the current gunpowder is still in powder form and has not formed particles. In terms of killing, the short branch's killing power is not as terrifying. However, after communicating with Zhu Gaoqi, Zhu Ying realized that he was the one who was most interested in firearms in the entire Yan Prince's mansion. The biggest common topic between the two is about firearms. Upon hearing these words, Zhu Ying's heart wandered and suddenly felt less resistant to going to the capital. Given Zhu Ying's current situation, it is too difficult to conduct advanced research and development on firearms. Apart from the statement of 1 sulfur, 2 nitrates, and 3 charcoal, Zhu Ying remembers that as for the rest, she doesn't have much feeling. As for the use of this gunpowder, it was quite widespread during the Tang and Song dynasties and had no significance at all. Besides, most people in later generations will not study this thing. Apart from knowing a general direction of development, Zhu Ying really only has a slight understanding, but there is no problem in deceiving Zhu Gaoqi. After pondering in her heart, Zhu Ying decided that this trip to the capital was still very necessary. If you could go to the military station to observe and even recruit a few firearm craftsmen, it would be even more perfect. After chatting with Zhu Gaoqi, I will go see him off. Zhang Bo asked, "Boss, how will we arrange tonight?" Zhu Ying pondered for a moment and said, "Uncle Zhang, bring along about 10 Chinese speakers who speak well. Follow me to the capital tomorrow, and the others will directly return to the western regions." "Yes, my boss." Chapter 6. Mystery of Background. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiangnan is very prosperous, even in the present-day Ming Dynasty, it is also the most prosperous place in the world. But Zhu Ying doesn't like it. 3 years ago, after Zhu Ying's basic situation stabilized on the grasslands of the western regions, he once let the caravan pass by. But because there are too many noble clans, I came back with a nose of dust. In Zhu Ying's opinion, the border areas of the Ming Dynasty are more comfortable and can be freely manipulated. Emperor Yongle is far away. Apart from not provoking the army of the Ming Dynasty, Zhu Ying can arrogantly say that this is my territory. There are sharp tools like snowflake salt to pave the way, whether it is officials from the border areas of the Ming Dynasty, or many small ministers and royal families. Including many tribes on the grassland and various forces in the western regions, they have deep ties with Zhu Ying. It is claimed that the source of snowflake salt comes from overseas merchants. After early primitive accumulation, Zhu Ying established a huge system of interests through the agency system. The more one gains, the more greedy one becomes, and of course, Zhu Ying cannot avoid vulgarity. In the current Ming Dynasty, rebellion is impossible, so he had the idea of establishing a country overseas a long time ago. Zhu Ying now has a small-scale firearms research base, but the progress is too frustrating. 2 years have not yet produced a usable one, at most it can be considered fireworks. After all, firearms craftsmen are almost entirely controlled by the Ming government. The foundation of those researchers is too poor, and just basic training requires a lot of effort and time. Even with the vision of future generations, Zhu Ying estimated that it would take at least 10 years to reach the current level of Ming firearms. If we could hire a few old craftsmen from the military bureau, they could be worth several years of research. It seems that it is necessary to go to the capital. Notify the responsible persons of the Chamber of Commerce to immediately break it down into smaller parts and head towards the Jiangnan region. Don't be afraid of spending money or losing money. Arrange hundreds of people to go over and wait for my orders at any time. After pondering for a long time, Zhu Ying instructed Zhong again. It may not be possible to make a turn now, but it is uncertain whether it will actually happen. The subsequent retreat must be planned first. Yes, my boss, I'll arrange it right away. Although Zhong does not understand the meaning of the host family can strategize and simply follow orders. After arranging everything and having dinner, Zhu Ying returned to her room to rest in the dark. There aren't many entertainment activities at night these days. Perhaps there are in Jiangnan, but after dark in Beiping, the streets are clear and quiet, with only a few brothels lit up. Elsewhere, it was already pitch black. For women, Zhu Ying is not very interested for the time being. She licks her blood with a knife and spends more time wandering. For Zhu Ying, getting married is currently a luxury. Zhu Ying has already reached 2 out of the 3 5-year plans he has set. In the first 5 years, establish your own power. Complete. In the second 5 years, stabilize the fundamentals and expand influence. Completed. The third 5-year plan is to develop industry, manufacture firearms, and expand overseas. Ongoing. I think after this trip to the capital, I should be able to find a place to develop steadily. Sitting at the desk, Zhu Ying couldn't help feeling a bit proud at the moment. Not every descendant can achieve such success in the early Ming Dynasty. Unfortunately, you can't see all of this, father. After a brief moment of pride, Zhu Ying felt a little emotional again. Zhu Ying is not unfamiliar with Nanjing. 10 years ago, when Zhu Ying woke up, she became a child about 8 or 9 years old. The father Zhu Ying mentioned was his adoptive father who adopted him at that time. My adoptive father is a merchant with the surname Zhu. He has been traveling around for years and found him on the banks of the Yangtze River outside Nanjing. My adoptive father's ancestors were refugees from the late Yuan dynasty. In the early days of the founding of the Ming Dynasty, they settled in a certain township in Huaiyan and started trading as merchants. My adoptive father's wife died of childbirth and gave birth to a son. In the turbulent life with my adoptive father, she contracted a cold and died uncontrollably. At that time, Zhu Ying was around 8 or 9 years old and had no original memory, so she had to pretend to have amnesia. The adoptive father saw that Zhu Ying was about the same age as his deceased son and believed that it was a gift from heaven for his son. Then Zhu Ying was adopted. Because his adoptive father and son passed away while traveling, he took Zhu Ying on a business trip for a few years and then claimed that Zhu Ying was his own son when he returned home. My adoptive father often engages in business and rarely goes home, so the villagers don't care much. The name Zhu Ying is because when his foster father picked up Zhu Ying, he was almost naked, with some tattered cloth strips on his body. The cloth strip is incomplete, but at a certain area where it breaks, you can vaguely see an English character embroidered with gold thread. My adoptive father's son doesn't have a big name, only a dog-egg nickname, so he decided to name him Zhu Ying. That piece of cloth is still preserved by Zhu Ying and placed in the territory of the western regions. The cloth is Sichuan brocade, extremely luxurious. Obviously, the predecessor's background should be good. Just being sunk in the river, it is estimated that it is either due to the collapse of the family or the mutual harm within the clan. Zhu Ying is also too lazy to pay attention. This is not the future. It's difficult to find it with just a piece of rag, and it's not necessarily a situation. The past dissipates like the wind, just live a good life for yourself. The next morning, people and horses gathered outside the Yunwen mansion at Yu reading www.uukangshu.net. One of the more eye-catching ones was a carriage, which was obviously prepared for Zhu Gaoji. Zhu Di didn't want to take this eldest son over, but there was no way, the etiquette was like this. If Zhu Di takes his second son to mourn the death of the crown prince, he may be criticized by the officials. That's someone even his father, Emperor Zhu, dared to criticize. Unable to provoke. In the Yen prince's mansion, there were guards reporting to Zhu Di. Your Highness, there was no sign of Zhu Ying's whereabouts last night. He had just arrived at the palace with his luggage and will arrive soon. Upon hearing this, Prince Yen Zhu Di smiled and said, "This son is quite sensible. Notify him and prepare to depart immediately." "Yes, Your Highness." The guard left with his front foot, and Guangxiao came with his back foot. "Master Daoyan, are you also planning to go to the capital together?" Zhu Di couldn't help but ask as he looked at Guangxiao's backpack. "I haven't seen some old friends in the capital for a long time. I'll go and contact them this time. Also, I'll help His Highness keep an eye on Zhu Ying, so as not to miss out on important things," explained Guangxiao. Zhu Di nodded. Guangxiao's social circle in the capital was quite good, and the leaders of the three schools of Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism had an inseparable relationship with him. It may be helpful in some aspects. At that time, the master and his son, Zhu Ying, will ride together in a car. Zhu Di kindly said that Guangxiao is not young anymore. Riding horses is too tiring, and although there are some bumps in the carriage, it is better than riding horses. "Thank you very much, Your Highness." Guangxiao bowed and thanked him. At this moment, outside the Yen prince's mansion, Zhu Ying, with more than 10 subordinates, had already arrived. Zhu Gaoqi looked up at the door for a long time, and at this moment, he warmly welcomed Zhu Ying. Chapter 7. Solitary Zhu Zhong 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is Zhu Ying's first time rushing through the post station. Compared to before, the feeling of a station is similar to the difference between later high-speed trains and green trains. Daming Station is an official direct operation and is prohibited for private use by the public. The summary of post stations is similar to the express logistics of later generations. Before Zhu Yuanzhang established the capital, he began to restore and rebuild various post stations in the Ming Dynasty. Earlier, there was a sun.in.law who was executed by Zhu Yuanzhang for illegally using a post station to transport 4 carts of goods. It is evident that Zhu Yuanzhang attached great importance and rigor to the post station. Nowadays, the relay method is mainly used in the relay stations of Daming. Set up a post station 20 miles away. For example, in the earlier 800-mile express service, starting from the capital, the order of setting up post stations was as follows. The post guards held orders and rode horses to deliver to the next post station. That's it, constantly transmitting the relay to reach a speed of 800 miles per day. From Nanjing to Beiping, it is a straight line of 900 kilometers, equivalent to 1,800 miles of land. Including these detours, it's only about 2,000 miles away. 800 miles is urgent, and it will arrive in 3 days. In today's Daming, it can be said that it is not fast. Of course, Zhu Di and others set off from Beiping, and it is impossible to use such a method. It would be good if they could travel 200 miles per day. And we cannot rush day and night, as we will rest at the post station when it gets dark. The post station is free for all officials who use it, including food, accommodation, and the return of the King of Yen to the capital. Every time I pass a post, I change horses to maintain my horsepower and my speed is very fast. However, even so, it took 11 days to reach the center of Nanjing. In the first 3 days, Zhu Gaoqi and Guangxiao could still chat with great interest, but by the end, they basically got on the car and lay down. After enduring a day of ups and downs, I went to the post station and fell asleep. A fat man, an old man in his 50s, these long journeys are really unbearable. After getting off the car in Nanjing, only Zhu Ying remained energetic, while the others were already exhausted. Inga, since you've just arrived in the capital, you probably haven't found a place to settle down. Take the guards with you and rest with us. Zhu Gaoqi found it difficult to speak. He just wants to go to the mansion and sleep quickly at this moment. Thank you to the Grand Prince then. Zhu Ying nodded in response. Among the group, only Zhu Di had the same mental state as Zhu Ying, which may be due to his high hopes for himself. As a feudal lord, Zhu Di naturally had his own mansion in the inner city of the capital, which was usually rewarded by his majesty. There are a bunch of princes' mansions and princes' mansions on this side of the inner city. There are also the general's mansion of Zhongua, the general's mansion of Fugua, and the general's mansion of Fenghua. Arriving at General Fenghua's place is equivalent to being granted the imperial decree by his great-grandson. The fourth generation of descendants who have not yet emerged are the lieutenant of Zhongua, the fifth generation is the lieutenant of Fugua, and the sixth generation and below are all lieutenant of Fenghua. Most of these matters for future generations have been arranged by Zhu Yuanzhang in the Emperor Ming's ancestral teachings. Zhu Di traveled over 2,000 miles from Beiping to Nanjing, and it took 11 days, which is already considered very fast. Some nearby feudal lords have basically arrived, but the distance is still quite far, especially on the side of the Shu king, which may be delayed for a few days. After all, the Sichuan road is difficult and the journey is much slower. There are still 7 days left until the morning day set by Zhu Yuanzhang. The streets and shops in Nanjing have been hung with white cloth. And the night in Nanjing has already implemented a curfew, and the bustling Qinhuai River is also pitch black. The Yen King's mansion in the capital is still very large, even if the Yen King does not live here, there are servants and maids cleaning it. Zhu Ying moved in with more than 10 people and didn't feel crowded. It was not until the morning of the next day that most people's hard work was able to recover. Zhu Gaoqi couldn't wait to take Zhu Ying to explore the city of Nanjing. Crown Prince Zhu Biao was an uncle to Zhu Gaoji, and he didn't have much contact with him. Of course, it wasn't that there was too much sadness, at most there was some emotion. Zhu Ying hesitated for a moment and said, now that His Highness the Crown Prince has passed away, as the eldest son of the Prince of Yen, you will definitely be granted the title of Crown Prince in the future. If the news of going out to play is spread at this time, I'm afraid there might be some twists and turns in the future. Upon hearing these words, Zhu Gaoqi immediately reacted and looked at Zhu Ying with gratitude in his eyes. How could he not know that his father didn't treat him well, if he really got caught? Perhaps the first person to depose their crown prince status is probably the father king. Thank you very much, Inga. Thinking of this, Zhu Gaoqi bowed deeply to Zhu Ying. The Grand Prince, don't be like this. Zhu Ying quickly supported him. The two of them could only stay comfortably in this courtyard, waiting for the day of condolence to arrive. The two of them chatted in the yard, and Zhu Ying didn't shy away. She asked butler Zhong to take a few people to the capital to see what shops were worth buying. Although the environment here in the Prince of Yan's mansion is good, there is always a feeling of being isolated from others. The Crown Prince Zhu Biao passed away, and the princes offered condolences. It will take almost 2 months at the fastest. Zhu Ying couldn't have lived in the Yen Prince's mansion for 2 months. He had many secrets, which were obviously extremely unchanging and easily exposed. Listening to Zhu Ying's desire to purchase a shop, Zhu Gaoqi pondered for a moment and said, my home is next to the Qinhuai River in the capital, and there seems to be a tea house. When I tell my father, I'll send it to Inga Air. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net. Prince Yen Zhu Di still had some industries in the capital, but he didn't pay much attention to them. Zhu Gaoqi was well aware of the importance that his father attached to Zhu Ying. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so polite to Zhu Ying either. I really thought that as the eldest son of the Prince of Yen, he was so easy to talk to anyone. Someone else may not be able to handle it. Upon hearing this, Zhu Ying's eyes flickered, and then she bluntly said, "Then I'll trouble the Grand Prince." The Daming Palace, Renji Hall, and Funeral Palace are located. Zhu Yuanzhang stood in front of Zhu Biao's coffin, with a slightly hunched figure and a look of stillness in his eyes. Unlike when Empress Ma passed away, after Zhu Biao passed away, he did not cry and was like a quiet piece of wood. However, the guards, eunuchs, and palace maids around were already lying on the ground, trembling with fear. Dozens of palace maids and eunuchs who used to serve Crown Prince Zhu Biao in the rear hall of Renji Hall have been executed and buried. Beside the coffin, Zhu Yunwen, who was only 15 years old, knelt on the ground, dressed in white, and let out hoarse sobs. Only when Zhu Yuanzhang's gaze turned to Zhu Yunwen would a faint anger appear. He hasn't eaten for a day, but the eunuchs and guards dare not persuade him. Last time I persuaded him, he is now lying in the back hall, ready to accompany the Crown Prince. For a long time, Zhu Yuanzhang's back gradually straightened. Without a sigh, only silently turning around and leaving. Our sister has left, our great-grandson has also left, and now our son has also left. Only Zhu Zhongba is left. That's it. In the following years, there was no more Zhu Zhongba, only Emperor Ming, Zhu Yuanzhang. Chapter 8. The position of Taisun should belong to His Highness Yunwen. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The coffin of Crown Prince Zhu Biao is stored in the Renji Hall. According to the customary etiquette, from the day of mourning, it will be buried after being recited by many high monks for 40.9 days. Of course, there is no need to worry about anti-corrosion issues. Ancient anti-corrosion techniques were still very strong, especially in the royal family. Even in later generations, ancient anti-corrosion techniques have great inspirations for future generations, and even some techniques that have been passed down have been used since the time of Zhu Ying's crossing. The body of the emperor in the mid to late Ming Dynasty can even be preserved for 3 months without decay. The crown prince has a duration of 7,749 days, while the emperor has a duration of 9,981 days. There are also strict regulations in accordance with the law of etiquette. As for why it has been stored for so long, the main factor is the slow dissemination of information throughout the world, especially in ancient times, which may be due to the death of the emperor or the death of the crown prince. It will take at least over a month to spread throughout the entire Ming Dynasty. If, like ordinary people, they were buried in 7 days, many descendants of the royal family would not be able to offer condolences in time. 2 subjects of the Ming Dynasty, or some officials in remote areas, did not even know that the crown prince of the Ming Dynasty had died. Isn't it about making a joke? The emperor is no exception. Many provisions in the etiquette and law, although seemingly cumbersome and strict, were also influenced to some extent by the social structure at that time. In the cold and icy funeral palace, Zhu Yunwen's eyes were sorrowful, and he seemed to be completely disoriented. Of course, this is true, not that he is acting, but that he is truly saddened by the death of his father Zhu Biao. Zhu Biao has 2 wives. The first one was Chang Shi, the eldest daughter of Chang Yechen. The great Ming Dynasty emphasizes the importance of matching families, and the crown prince's legitimate wife naturally needs to have a prominent family. However, after giving birth to Zhu Yingui, Chang passed away due to the sequelae of difficult childbirth. Lu, who was previously the second consort of the crown prince, came from a small family background. As a member of a small ethnic group, the reason why Lu was selected as the crown prince's second consort was naturally due to her extremely beautiful appearance. Compared to the LV family, Chang's appearance is obviously much worse. Zhu Biao naturally respects his legitimate wife like a guest, while he dotes on his second consort LV Shi. After Chang passed away due to illness, Zhu Biao requested his father Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang to directly appoint LV as his stepwife. Zhu Yunwen, who was originally an illegitimate son, naturally became the legitimate son of his mother. The legitimate son did not yield to the illegitimate, so both the Chang and LV families were legitimate sons. After the death of his eldest grandson Zhu Xionying, Zhu Yunwen became the eldest grandson. As for Zhu Ying, life was not very easy. After giving birth, the mother consort fell ill and passed away. She lost her biological mother from a young age and was raised by the LV family. Crown Prince Zhu Biao is also relatively simple about it, not to mention disgust or love. As for his eldest grandson Zhu Xionying, he was personally raised by Empress Ma and Zhu Yuanzhang before his death. Even Crown Prince Zhu Biao and Crown Princess Chang could only go and see him. Since weaning, he has been living and growing up with Empress Ma and Zhu Yuanzhang. Zhu Biao's personality is relatively inclined towards Confucianism, emphasizing kindness and generosity, which is also related to Zhu Yuanzhang's teachings, because he knew that although a country is great and belligerent, it will inevitably perish. So he hopes that his son will not be like him, a horse emperor, but will govern the country with peace of mind. In this aspect, Zhu Yunwen is highly imaginative of his father Zhu Biao, and his appearance is very similar to his mother Elvisher, which is very popular with Zhu Biao. In this way, Zhu Ying's situation became very awkward. As a great-grandson, I just lack some favor, and I will never be short of luxurious clothing and food. However, in such an environment, especially after the death of his eldest grandson Zhu Xionying and Zhu Yunwen becoming his eldest grandson, the only one who could threaten Zhu Yunwen's future position was Zhu Yunwen. Because in legal terms, as the previous legitimate son, even if Zhu Yunwen is supported as the legitimate son, there is no distinction in the succession rights of the two to the throne. When taking care of Zhu Ying, LV inevitably had to put more effort into it. It is difficult to cultivate a child into a pillar of society, but it is extremely easy to cultivate waste. Although not very thorough, he was no longer loved by Zhu Yuanzhang. Now that the crown prince has passed away, it seems that the LV family has become the winner who laughs until the end. Brother Dao Yan, you fake monk, you haven't seen him for several years and have gained a lot of weight. I believe you must have lived a comfortable life with the king of Yan. In a certain courtyard, opposite Yao Guangxiao, a middle-aged man dressed in Confucian attire smiled and said to him, I can't compare to Brother Zicheng, after all, I'm just wasting time in an empty door. Yao Guangxiao smiled and replied, saying that he no longer claimed to be a poor monk for Huang Zicheng. Yao Guangxiao became a monk at Miaoji Temple in Suzhou when he was young, proficient in the three religions, and had good relationships with academic leaders from various schools of Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Among them, he had studied under Song Lian, the teacher of Huang Zicheng, for a period of time. Although he had not entered Confucianism, he was still a disciple of the same school, and was barely considered a fellow disciple of Huang Zicheng. Huang Zicheng was a Hanlin scholar, accompanying him to study in the Eastern Palace. He had always been Zhu Yunwen's teacher and had a close relationship. After a slight exchange of greetings, Yao Guangxiao stood up and bowed, it seems that I want to wish Zicheng a smooth and prosperous future. Huang Zicheng was slightly surprised and immediately said, Brother Dao Yan, what does this mean? Yao Guangxiao pretended to be angry and said, all right, Brother Zicheng has to keep this matter from me. After finishing speaking, he quietly looked around and whispered in his ear, the crown prince has passed away. The country cannot be without a crown prince for a day. It is said that His Highness Yunwen is very popular with His Majesty. I will soon appoint him as his great-grandson. After hearing this, Huang Zicheng couldn't help but take a step back and whispered, Brother Dao Yan, you reading www.uukangshu.net, you can't say this nonsense. Be careful not to bring trouble out of your mouth. Yao Guangxiao said with a nonchalant expression, I have great Ming laws. If there is a legitimate heir, there is no legitimate heir. If there is no legitimate heir, there will be no elder brother. His Highness Yunwen is not too young, and now he often accompanies His Majesty. If he does not appoint His Highness Yunwen as his great-grandson, who else can he appoint? After a slight pause, Huang Zicheng's face lit up with a smile, and he said with some pride, "Indeed, Brother Daoyan has seen through it thoroughly, but now your majesty has not yet made a decision, and everything is still unknown. At present, it seems that no one can compare with His Highness Yunwen in the matter of morning and evening," Yao Guangxiao affirmed. Upon hearing this, Huang Zicheng did not answer again, but he clearly recognized Yao Guangxiao's words and was quite confident. "At present, your majesty has only two choices, either from the crown prince or from the crown prince. Prince, according to the order of inheritance, naturally he is the second son, Prince Qin Zhu Xiu. The imperial grandson is Zhu Ying and Zhu Yunwen. It's almost impossible for Prince Qin Zhu Xiu. Since he was recalled to the capital last year, it would be considered good if his position as a feudal lord had not been abolished. Your majesty would not appoint him no matter what. Of course, it is also possible to depose the king of Qin and replace him with the king of Jin, Zhu Gong, due to his lack of moral character. However, although Zhu Gang was a skilled fighter, he was too cruel and had a bad reputation. Although favored by Zhu Yuanzhang, he was not an excellent candidate to be appointed as the crown prince. Zhu Di is quite good, with both fame and military achievements. It's just that the queue is too far back. There are still two older brothers ahead, and it's not even Zhu Di's turn to succeed, although Zhu Di feels very competitive about himself. So after this calculation, Zhu Yuanzhang actually had no choice at all. The position of Taisun belongs to Zhu Yunwen. Chapter 9. Zhu Di's Anxiety. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yao Guangxiao's reputation was not prominent, but he was the first hero of the Jingnan Battle of Zhu Di in the future. It can be said that if it weren't for Yao Guangxiao, Zhu Di would have suffered great losses in many aspects of the secret, among which the methods of power and strategy were all attributed to Yao Guangxiao. The famous black-clothed prime minister in later generations is not just an empty name. After following Zhu Di to the capital, Yao Guangxiao left early in the morning and only returned in the evening. With his delicate appearance, he was extremely busy. And Huang Zicheng was Yao Guangxiao's main target. Huang Zicheng, as Zhu Yunwen's trusted teacher, was gradually influenced by Yao Guangxiao from an early age. Later, after Zhu Yunwen became Emperor Yongle, he insisted on using Huang Zicheng's plan of first weakening the domain and then fighting to strengthen it. It is unknown whether this was influenced by Yao Guangxiao. It is still unknown whether Yao Guangxiao's subtle and silent means of moistening things have been utilized by ordinary people. Even if there is speculation, there are only a few clues that cannot be confirmed afterwards. This is the brilliance of Yao Guangxiao. By the banks of the Qinhuai River, Zhu Ying and Zhu Gaoqi are standing in front of a tea house. This is the tea house that Zhu Di belongs to. With the consent of his father Zhu Di, Zhu Gaoqi took the land deed and today he gave it to Zhu Ying. Zhu Gaoqi may seem loyal and honest, but in fact, he has a deep understanding of the city. After all, he used to often see Uncle Zhu Biao. Of course, one can easily see the similarities in Zhu Ying's appearance at a glance. But Zhu Gaoqi didn't ask his father anything, he just made friends with Zhu Ying. Even his own property in the capital was offered to Zhu Ying without the consent of his father, Zhu Di. It's really a good position, Zhu Ying said with some emotion. In front of the two of them was a two-story small tea house, with an area of about half an acre, which was the size of 300 square meters in later generations. In a place as precious as the capital, it is not something that can be bought with money. Next to it is the bank of the Qinhuai River, and from the second-floor window, you can clearly see the scenery of Qinhuai. The Qinhuai River in the early Ming Dynasty is not as wide as the 20.30 meters in later generations, but rather over 100 meters wide. The Qinhuai River referred to here is the inner Qinhuai River, not the outer Qinhuai River. Before the late Tang Dynasty, the Qinhuai River was located outside the main city, without any distinction between the inner and outer Qinhuai Rivers. Later, the highest administrative officer of Nanjing at that time, Xiu Xincheng, surrounded the Qinhuai River inside the main city and opened a moat outside the city, which is now the outer Qinhuai River. In the early Ming Dynasty, Nanjing was designated as the capital, and the two sides of the Qinhuai River prospered accordingly. There are numerous handicrafts, tea houses, brothels, and shops on both sides of the strait. There are even many river houses that extend into the river. The tea house that Zhu Ying is about to acquire is also one of the river houses. The number of river houses continued to increase, and the river surface was increasingly encroached upon, which was the main reason why the Qinhuai River in later generations was only 20.30 meters wide. Tenli Qinhuai is the bustling area of Nanjing, and the 8 beauties of Qinhuai in the late Ming and early Qing dynasties are also famous here. Across from the tea house is the famous Jiangnan Gongyuan in history. On the side of Zhu Ying Tea House, there is a gathering place of famous performers from the southern teaching workshops. Famous ones include the Old Courtyard and Zhushi. With Zhu Ying's ear power, she could still vaguely hear the sounds of warblers, birds, swallows, and swallows. Occasionally, when the wind blows, you can still smell the fragrance of rouge. And this tea house is located in the middle of the street, with an excellent location that cannot be measured by silver, representing more of a status. Isn't this a bit too expensive? Even though Zhu Ying was quite valuable, she still felt a bit flattered when facing such a tea house. Even if this tea house is just rented out, it may cost hundreds of silver dollars a year. In the 7th year of the Hongwu reign, Zhu Yuanzhang promulgated the banknote law and established the Baoqiao Tiju Bureau. The following year, he issued the Ming Baoqiao. However, as of now, there are signs of decline in the Ming Dynasty banknotes. At this time, the paper is poor and the Ming Dynasty banknotes are difficult to durable. Moreover, Daming banknotes are only issued and not received, without any boundaries or recycling of old banknotes. The number of issues is also unlimited. As a result, there are more and more banknotes circulating in the market, causing rampant inflation and rapid depreciation in the year of issuance. Previously, the Hongwu Tongbao was also issued, but the copper coins were poorly crafted and inconvenient to use, and the Ming Dynasty lacked copper. Coupled with the severe depreciation of banknotes, silver has become an unstoppable major currency for public-private transactions. The convenience of using broken silver currency has suppressed inflation caused by currency chaos in the early stages, allowing for the development of the monetary economy. This tea house is in the hands of my father, and it's not very useful. Look at the bustling atmosphere around here, but this tea house is very rare. It's better not to dislike this tea house. Zhu Gaoqi smiled and said, but what he said was also true. Many of these good positions are usually under the command of various feudal lords. Under the influence of Zhu Yuanzhang, no one among the feudal lords liked to engage in business. Basically, they left their shops to the lower level and left them unattended. Most of them only paid rent, and the income from a few acres of feudal land was not high. Thank you very much, Prince. Zhu Ying did not mention the land deed, and Zhu Gaoji seemed to have forgotten it as well. In the later years, Zhu Gaoji was able to successfully seize the throne without causing any trouble in the country, but his city government was much stronger than those two reckless brothers. If it weren't for physical reasons, Zhu Gaoji wouldn't have been as cautious as he is now. During the Yongle period, Zhu Di was belligerent and was always controlled by Zhu Gaoqi in domestic affairs. It was those two younger brothers who only valued military power and never paid attention to people's livelihoods. In the blink of an eye, 5 days have passed. During these 5 days, Zhu Ying also welcomed the day when the tea house was about to open. The tea house is named Ping'an Tea House. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. It is said to be a tea house, but in fact, it is not much different from a breakfast shop. During the Ming Dynasty, tea houses had a wide range of operating projects. Usually, I sell breakfast in the morning, drink tea and listen to books in the afternoon. The most popular storytellers during the Ming Dynasty were Tang poetry, song lyrics, Yuan opera, and Ming novels. Zhu Ying asked Zhong to find a storyteller and didn't bother anymore. After being influenced by later generations, reading these storytelling stories fresh now doesn't have much meaning. Zhu Ying didn't have the heart to create any novel stories, it's just that her ambition is not here. Zhong is a good shopkeeper and cook. Over the years, Zhu Ying has been quite picky about food and doesn't want to make it herself. She basically teaches Zhong how to make it. Soup with pepper, scones, soup dumplings, egg fried buns, crystal shrimp, porridge, congee, soybean milk, etc. Although most people have 2 meals a day, in the bustling city of Nanjing, most people have become accustomed to having 3 meals a day. It's not uncommon to have 4 meals a day, just like some distinguished individuals. But Zhu Ying's pricing for these breakfast items is more than twice that of other tea houses. His target positioning is already those noble classes. There is news from the palace that my nephew is guarding his elder brother alone. The king of Yan's face was somewhat gloomy, and as a prince, it was not difficult for him to receive some news from the palace. After all, that is where he grew up, and there are always a few eunuchs who have good relationships. And the act of Emperor Yunwen guarding the spirit made Zhu Di feel a bit uneasy. Upon hearing these words, Guangxiao's face turned pale, and all of this was within his expectations. Your Highness, don't worry. After tomorrow's condolences, Your Majesty will make everything clear.